This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is October 3rd, 2017, and this is episode number 39. Let's do this.
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking to the band Cheap Perfume about their music, punching Nazis, and Betsy DeVos. Then on Open Mike's Last Call, we'll talk about the recent massacre in Las Vegas and how has this become the new normal. So let's get to the political mosh pit, but first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
Puerto Rico is still recovering after Hurricane Maria hit the island, leaving 90% of the island without power and water. Maria was the strongest hurricane to hit the island in 85 years. President Trump went to Twitter to accuse the San Juan mayor of poor leadership, and the San Juan mayor, Cameron Cruz, responded by saying the goal is saving lives. It's too bad Trump is more focused on a Twitter war than getting help to the U.S. citizens of Puerto Rico. Tom Price resigns as the head of Health and Human Services Agency, and it's yet another cabinet member to leave the Trump White House. Price resigned over using several government jets for private business. The cost to taxpayers is an estimated $1 million. Price used private jets and military jets when commercial flights were also available. Betsy DeVos was met with a massive protest as she visited Harvard to speak to students and refused to answer their questions. Here's the clip.
So what do we do? What does the future hold? More funding? Does that fix the problem? Yes. Again, the data would show otherwise. With the U.S. spending significantly more per pupil.
One more question up here.
Hi, my name is Jeff Rusay. I'm a Master in Public Administration student here at the Kennedy School. So you're a billionaire with lots and lots of investments, and the so-called school choice movement is a way to open the floodgates for corporate interests to make money off of the backs of students. How much do you expect your net worth to increase as a result of your policy choices? And what are your friends on Wall Street and in the business world, like the Koch brothers, saying about the potential to get rich off the backs of students?
You can choose not to answer that, Secretary.
Rock legend Tom Petty has died at the age of 66 from a heart attack. The rocker just recently finished his national tour celebrating 40 years of music. And Tom Petty, you will be missed. In Las Vegas, 59 people are killed and over 500 people are injured following a gunman opening fire on a crowd at a country music festival. More on this at the end of the program. And on this day in rock history, October 3rd, 1978, Aerosmith bailed 30 fans out of jail after they were arrested for smoking marijuana during an Aerosmith concert at Fort Wayne. And that's the news of the week. What is up, my fellow political junkies? On today's podcast, our featured band is Cheap Perfume. Cheap Perfume is a Colorado-based feminist punk group. Coining the term femcore, Cheap Perfume have a classic punk sound that overlay current political, feminist, and socially aware lyrics, and it's delivered in a unique fashion with dual vocals by Stephanie and Jane No. The band released their full-length debut album titled Nailed It on November 2016, and recently they have released a single titled It's Okay to Punch Nazis. Needless to say, after hearing Cheap Perfume's music and reading some of their lyrics, I had to feature them on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. And I was lucky enough to talk to Jane and Stephanie about, well, punching Nazis and a lot of other current events. But before we get to the interview, let's check out one of their songs. Here's Fight Like a Girl by Cheap Perfume. And that was Fight Like a Girl by Cheap Perfume. And I have Jane and Stephanie from the band. What's up? And thanks for joining the Punk Rock and Politics podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, of course. And so do you guys want to, you two want to introduce yourself, Jane and Stephanie, and tell them the audience what you play?
Sure. Yeah, I am Jane No. I play guitar and sing and am co-songwriter with Stephanie.
I am Stephanie. I am the singer and co-songwriter of Jane No.
Cool. I was just, like I was telling you, I was just listening to your music on Bandcamp. It's really like classic, in-your-face punk. I mean, it was really refreshing. It's something, it almost kind of has a old school sound, like you're listening to something from 10, 20 years ago, or even 20, 30 years ago, but it has very relevant. So what goes into writing your lyrics and writing your music?
I think it kind of depends. We definitely have our fair share of sad girl breakup songs. And then we stem from a few different political ideas, obviously very feminist forward. But then from there, I think it's just kind of radical politics.
And the band is created, the full band, it's Dave, and Jane, and Jeff, and then Stephanie, correct? It's you four?
Yeah.
Cool. So you guys, and I saw online, you identify yourself as you're a Colorado-based feminist group. So you do identify as like a feminist punk group.
Yeah. And when we first formed, we were, well, I think we coined the term. We were calling ourselves femcore, and we still do that sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, dude, that's a good tagline. I think the only other really huge, really big feminist punk group is Pussy Riot. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like, but that's, a little different style, in they're Russian based. But so what exactly brought the band together? I know you guys formed in 2015.
Yeah, it's kind of a boring story, but this is Jane. I had been in a band with Dave and Jeff before, but before any of that happened, Jeff moved to Denver, and I kept trying to bug Dave to start a new band, and he didn't want to for a while, and then finally he did, and we started playing together, and then our friend Tyler actually at the time was playing bass, and then like right after we had like had one or two like just sessions of messing around, I ran into Stephanie for the first time in many years. And we were like acquaintances from a long time ago, but we were probably drunk or something, and we decided to go out to karaoke. And then like I heard her singing karaoke, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to sing in my band, because I want, I don't know. I didn't exactly know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted
something. You saw something you wanted.
Yeah, and then when she came and actually like did her little sassy singing, which is more of like a sass talk, I loved it so much, and it was everything I ever wanted.
Yeah, it is really cool. I do like how you do the overlaying vocals with the two like sounds. It is really, really cool. It's definitely a very unique sound. So.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So, before we get to one more, like, I noticed there's a few, like, Trump references, and the album came out in November 2016. So I have to ask, how much did, like, Trump's election and presidential campaign have in influencing some of the music on this album?
So, I definitely think that as far as Nailed It goes, we really only had that one song, Trump Roast or Dear Dawn, that was pointed towards that. And it was very much so a happenstance that it came out when it did. That was the plan. I think we, like a lot of people, didn't really expect the outturn, or the outcome of that election. So obviously it's, relevant as the campaigning was going on, and you hear the vile things that Trump was saying. But again, kind of happenstance as far as the album being released when it was, and, I guess pertaining to politics as far as Donald Trump goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for a political, feminine punk band, it's like perfect, or femcore. I love that title, that genre. That's like, it's kind of crazy how that just worked out to land on that day. And since Donald Trump has been elected, we've seen a huge rise of the alt-right and the neo-nationalist movement, and also just the straight up white supremacist movement. So, and I'm pretty sure that had a lot of influence in this next song. So let's check this song out, and then we'll get back to the political mosh pit and talk about it. So here's It's Okay to Punch Nazis by Cheap Perfume. And that was It's Okay to Punch Nazis by Cheap Perfume. And I still have Jane and Stephanie from the band here to talk about, so when is it okay to punch Nazis?
Always.
Right.
Every time ever in history and every year forevermore.
Definitely. I think this is a very interesting topic and conversation that the left is having right now. And I think it's important because I think there's two main school of thoughts. Personally, if you haven't heard the podcast before, I identify myself as very, very progressive, very far to the left. So far to the left that I touch the right. That's kind of my saying. But I see it as there's, let me lay this out there and then you guys kind of can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I see it on the left. There's two schools of thought, really. The one who thinks we should go out, just silence anyone from the alt-right, punch them, so, shut their things down. If they have rallies, shut anything down, no matter what. And then there's another side who say, we need to talk and try to have dialogue. But then they're saying, well, if you have dialogue and you talk with them, then you're essentially validating their point of view. So, do you see those two groups within the left movement, and how do you see what we should do? Should we talk to them, or because not everyone is a Nazi.
No, and when that song came out, like some of the criticism was like, oh, that's just what the left calls everybody a Nazi when they say something they don't like. Mm-hmm. And that's not what we're doing. Like, that's actually what the whole song is about. It's like, no, you're saying things that the Nazis actually said and did. And those are the Nazis we're talking about. And the alt-right is included. Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot to that question. I think it's pretty loaded. But I think that there is also a lot to think about when you think that there's a lot of these groups right now that are doing things that are like not even legal to do in Germany, such as carrying swastika flags. Hailing Hitler. These people are outright calling for the genocide of other races and whatnot. And so, in that stance, it's definitely, there's a moral high ground to punching people openly calling for the harm of other races and religions versus anything else. And then, we do really value the culture of, call out between call in. So, of course, we don't just call everybody Nazis. We are educated on when people are just maybe a little bit less progressive and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I don't want to at all. I saw that the Vice documentary. I don't know. Did you see? I think it was in Charlottesville.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, that guy, he's completely just far out there. Calling for extermination of people just because of their race, which is wrong. And that's like the lowest of the low pond scum. But in the alt-right, I see a lot of different layers to that. So it's kind of, I despise a lot of them, but should we just close, as, being on the left, should we just close off all dialogue, or how do you guys think we can go forward?
No, I think dialogue is good and actually the best first step always. And like, if somebody is willing to engage in like rational dialogue, then that's definitely the first thing to do. I think the problem is like context. So if you're at a rally or a demonstration or something and there's someone there, a Nazi, and like we had a trans equal rights rally here in Colorado Springs a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy there in swastikas, and he had a clipboard and he was writing down names of all the speakers, and he was like writing down their descriptions. Then like somewhere along the way, like someone jumped out of a Jeep and like punched someone in the crowd. So after that, some of my friends bought guns who used to say they were pacifists. Mm-hmm. So I feel like in that moment, if I had seen that Nazi and knew he was there, I think I would have gone up and just tried to open a conversation with him. And if that didn't, I'm not saying, okay, so like you can tell from the song that it's got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's not like,
yeah.
not like a direct call to Nazis, although we don't care if you punch Nazis, or direct call to punch Nazis, although we don't care.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, sometimes you're gonna have to, and like when you see Richard Spencer out in public, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so of course, dialogue's the best way. It's just like when people are so irrational, sometimes you have to change your strategy.
Definitely. And
sometimes violence is the only way that people learn too.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. And I definitely think, sometimes, and seeing Richard Spencer getting punched that's really funny. And that gif is really awesome. I'm not going to lie.
I can watch that on repeat forever.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. But what I think is really, really powerful that we saw in Charlottesville is I like to think of it as like digitally punching them, is when they took a lot of the pictures of those guys who were, walking around with the Walmart tiki torches. And they got their pictures and would put them up on the internet. And then people were like, oh, I know this guy. He works, here and here. And then they let their employers know. And a lot of people got fired for that. So I think that's a really good, like you said, we need to do different tactics.
Yeah, like the group Anonymous, I like how they're always choosing, nonviolent and clever ways. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
like clever ways to call people out. But then it's like they released that group of like lawmakers who were like in the KKK or had ties to KKK, and it seems like nobody really cared after a day.
Well, and often I think about it in the way where like, it's really great that those people lost their jobs. That's an excellent first step to
not normalizing that behavior.
Yeah, and ostracizing, those people. But ultimately, I mean, if you think about it in a lot of ways where, I mean, again, those people are openly asking for the murder and total finality of different races. I mean, does that kind of come back to the exact same point of conversations where Brock Turner had his life ruined because he got caught doing something legit,
Mm-hmm.
Does that further victimize them losing their jobs and not having really any further steps taken? It's a really frustrating go around that you can get into, is just like, cool, that's a really wonderful first step, but are we really getting anywhere?
Right. Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, because a lot of these white middle-aged males or younger, millennial males, that's who pretty much all these guys are. A lot of them are being disenfranchised because if you look at the economy, essentially, white males have had it better for, forever. And now essentially society is pulling white middle-class males down to where everyone else has been in the socioeconomic ladder. And I think they're upset. So I think you said if you victimize them, maybe that's going to feed their misguided perception of the world and say, oh, I am a victim. See, so and that is,
it just excuses them from having any responsibility for what is actually happening, for their actions, for what they're doing. I mean, again, it just places them in this victim role where, I mean, like, again, it's a really hard conversation. I mean, and you can have meetings after meetings of tactics and what you're going to do. But I mean, like, things like that, ultimately, does that just land us in the exact same place where they don't take any responsibility? They think this is victimhood. They think they're not allowed to have their First Amendment right. And so, I mean, have we really gotten any further?
Yeah, no. I mean, we really haven't. Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's a right answer or there's a wrong answer or that getting them fired isn't wonderful, because it totally is. But does that really place ownership of their wrongdoings on them?
Well, probably not. And just like you said with the KKK list, when stuff does come out, or with the police brutality, all these shootings, when these body cams do come out, does it really change the outcome when it's like, oh wow, he totally just killed someone, or oh, people are actually in the KKK, yet they're not getting fired or having anything done. So it kind of shows that the system itself either protects these people or it's just so broken that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's why I mean it's really cool that you two are coming on here having a conversation. You're playing music, you know, putting the conversation out there and getting it out there. Because here on the podcast, I've had quite a bit of Trump supporters actually come on. And I'm gonna.
You have the patience of a saint.
Well, actually, a lot of these guys aren't like that bad, you know. But the crazy thing is, so far 3 of them. One was from Wisconsin, one was in Michigan, and then the other one was in Pennsylvania. And all 3 of those guys, none of them liked Trump. One just wanted, you know, to blow up the system. The other one, you know, just didn't like Hillary. So I heard in one of the songs or earlier in the interview, you said kind of like you didn't see the election coming. Can you like elaborate more on that? You know, and go more. Do you think that was a wide perception of things, or was that just a few on the left?
I'm going to let Jane answer that question moreover, but I do want to point out that one of our lines in It's Okay to Punch Nazis is we'd rather have a racist than a woman in power.
We just didn't take it seriously. I was going with that smart guy who always predicts everything correctly in the election.
Nate Silver.
Yeah. And I was like going by that. And so when we formed, we wanted to sing a lot about, not only, but a lot about feminism and women's rights. Mm-hmm. And it was around the same time that people were actually starting to take Donald Trump seriously as a candidate. Mm-hmm. And of course, at the same time, his terrible statements were coming out. And we took him, I guess we were just incredulous the entire campaign trail that all these things he said and did weren't deal breakers. Every time I was like, what kind of alternate reality am I living in? Mm-hmm. And then of course that's why we decided to write Dear Dawn or Trump Roast. We always casually call it Dear Dawn, but I guess after a few months or a few months before the election, I don't know, all these analysts were saying, don't get so angry. There's no way he can win. There's no way he can win.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did win. And, so our bassist lives in Denver, but the rest of us live in Colorado Springs, and Colorado Springs is actually really awesome. We have, the downtown and west side, and is pretty progressive. We have a great arts community, and anyway, we like living here. We choose to live here, but our county as a whole, because we have a lot of suburban sprawl and a lot of military people out in the suburbs, went for Trump.
Yeah, because you're a purple state, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but with Boulder and Denver, it's
yeah, those cities really pull the entire state, kind
liberal.
of. Yeah, that's true. Well,
but then you have all the small towns.
Even here in California, I mean, we have Mount Shasta, and we have, which is, speaking of the white nationalist neo-Nazi movement, a lot of people don't know, in Jefferson County and Mount Shasta in California is one of the largest neo-Nazi and largest white supremacist movements is actually in California. So, even though it's a liberal state or a purple state, that doesn't really mean that much.
No. Yeah. And I think, I have this theory that if you live in a conservative place that's all around you, it breeds more of a thriving creative subculture. And so I think sometimes when you are in a more conservative surroundings, it probably motivates the opposite side to a greater degree, maybe, than if it was just medium.
Yeah, no, you have a great point. I always go back to this. I lived in Arizona for 7 years. No, you're totally right. And in Arizona, that's home. It was Maricopa County, home of Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Every single state legislature, from school board all the way up to governor, everyone was a Republican. But the music scene, and like you were saying, the rebellion and the resistance culture, counterculture, underground was very strong and very vibrant. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Never really thought of it like that. So, but I think you guys, you being cut off and not expecting Trump to win, I kind of think that is kind of a national thing that really happened to everyone. And it was kind of like you were saying, whoa, is this reality? What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, this is a really good question I would like to ask. I mean, personally, I'm a white male, so I don't know if I just don't see it, but do you think that sexism did have a major role in Hillary Clinton's loss?
I think that could go a couple different ways. To be totally honest with you, this is Stephanie, I was not a Hillary supporter.
Yeah.
I voted for her because...
Well, in your state, you have to, yeah.
Yeah, because what were our choices?
Yeah.
I do think it played a part. If that was the defining yes or no, that's a really hard question to ask because, I mean, look at it in the same way where these things keep happening over and over, and it's not even just like one example anymore that you have to look at when you say, like, is racism real? Does racism exist? Is racism still alive and well these days? Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks will say no because they have privilege and because they don't deal with it. So, I mean, you can go into the same, mindset when you think of, did she lose because she's a woman? A lot of people will say no because it's still a lot of privilege and a lot of people that don't really see those things. But again, I think that's a really hard one to nail down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I just wanted to get your perspective on it, because you are self-identified, female, feminist punk group. So, and me, like I was saying, as a white, I consider myself somewhat privileged male. I maybe I just can't see it, So, I did want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think because sexism is institutionalized and
yes.
We're not always aware of it like we aren't of racism or any other kind of
oppression,
bigotry or oppression. I think that obviously she's not like an upstanding woman, she's not nearly progressive enough for us. Mm-hmm. And but from that standpoint, it's hard to feel like anyone represents me. And so I know Stephanie and I know we were at a bar one night. We had a show like the month before the election, and this guy, we told him we were in a band, and he's like, "Oh, well, what kind of band are you?" And we're like, "Oh, I don't know, femcore punk." And he's like, "Oh, so I guess you're going for Hillary." And it was really offensive that he thought just because we were women, we were like going for Hillary.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of time, like, privilege is blind.
Yeah, privilege is blind. So like, even if people didn't know they were voting against her because she was a woman, maybe because of the institutionalized sexism that we've grown up with, maybe you don't trust her as much as you would a man the same.
And that would pull out the things that are there, the negative qualities that are there, but maybe that just makes them shine out or pop out a little bit more to oppose if she was a woman, like Obama, which Obama, as a leftist, he's not very progressive, and progressives seem to totally love him, or, a lot of them. So, all right, well, I have one more question before I let you go, because you said institutional sexism, and I think that's a very good point, especially when it comes to racism and sexism, because it's not always in your face, blunt guys walking down the street with tiki torches. Sometimes it is more institutionalized. So have you heard of Betsy DeVos's she took away rights for women on campus who are sexually assaulted?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Have you heard about that? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a really loaded and sensitive.
I'm sorry if it's
topic. No.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no, I'm willing to talk about it. Absolutely. Yeah. It just might be a little bit more of a word vomit than most things would be.
That's what we're all about here. Word vomiting.
Incredibly frustrating. This is Stephanie. So one thing that I really value Cheap Perfume for is that I was raped in 2015, and when I kind of wanted to put that into a good place, into a song, into something that could be a little bit more of a cathartic experience with explaining that, and not only that, but just like reaching out to other people who have been victims as well. We wrote our song that actually is like the only song that we don't have recorded, which is called Put the Devil to Bed. so subjects within that in music are very close to me because with that, it brought actually up that we have talked to a lot of survivors at this point, probably over 50 male and female survivors of sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
And it's rampant. It's insane. It's crazy how big of a problem this is. And for Betsy DeVos to go ahead and relinquish some of those safety nets that survivors do have, it's absolutely fucking deplorable. And quite honestly, it literally just seems like anything that the black guy did, they just want to get out of there, no matter how
legitimate of a good it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good it is just for people. I mean, and on and off campus, I mean, rape is not taken seriously. Rape is a huge fucking problem, and the system continually fails victims. And so, I mean, sorry, like I honestly, like, it's infuriating.
Yeah. No, thank you for thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, that's great that you're turning such a horrible traumatic event into something that is positive, and you're helping other people, and that's all you can do, and that's amazing. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just like lastly add that, you know, it's very prevalent that Betsy DeVos already had no idea how to do her fucking job, and let her walk forth into the fields of not having any fucking idea of what education is and what supports education.
Yeah, and she's never gotten a student loan. I mean, she's just like, I had so many more problems with her, and then she did that, and I was like, wow, I did not expect her. I mean, you know, because like we were almost saying, you know, she's a female. Why, you know, so it's almost like, I don't even understand that.
There's a lot of privileged.
Yes, so she's never experienced
females that have never had to face. I mean, like, even their everyday sexism, I mean, could be, I'm not denying that it's there, because it absolutely is, but maybe it's just something they're more complacent with. But either way, I mean, some of the struggles of some of the more lower class females, I mean, of all, you know, races, it's just, I don't think it's something she's had to deal with. I think that's a privilege that she has.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so she doesn't understand what a big deal it is and how it is going to affect people by pulling away the safety net, which, yeah, that's just horrible. But thanks for sharing that. And I'm really happy that you are turning that into something positive. And thanks for coming on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. And, you know, when I started this podcast, you know, way back when, I really wanted to get bands on here who would talk about music. And, you know, even if I'd get really, really lucky, I'd find bands who have political music that we could talk about. So I consider this episode, I got really, really lucky to talk to you two. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So before I let you go, can you let everyone online know where's the best place they can find Cheap Perfume's music?
Well, you can stream it on Spotify, and you can buy it on iTunes and Bandcamp. And I think our cheapperfume.bandcamp.com. Is that right?
Yeah, we do actually have also like physical merchandise there, including the CD if you're a physical kind of person.
Oh, and one of our shirts to go along with our newest song, which is it's like in the style of old DC hardcore shirts, and it has a picture of Richard Spencer getting punched in the face, and it says it's okay to punch Nazis.
Yeah, like I was saying, anything, like, I'm always like, I don't know about punching Nazis, but you're gonna punch Richard Spencer, dude, you could do it and record it and make a GIF out of it. So yeah, hey, thanks so much again for coming on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast.
Sure.
And before I let you go, here's one more song. Here's Slut Game Strong by Cheap Perfume.
Boys don't like girls who swear. Well, I don't really fucking care. Cross your legs, don't speak too loudly. I'll speak my mind, and I'll do it proudly. The weird fucked up world doesn't carry protection. Defend of a man who can't handle rejection. You're fragile, no ego doesn't mean that I owe you my smile, my time, or even a thank you. Go on and say what you want. I couldn't care less.
All right, let's give it up for Cheap Perfume and Stephanie and Jane for coming on the political mosh pit and doing the interview. It's always cool to meet new bands and have interviews with all different, types of bands and people. So it was really cool having them come on, and I really wish that band all the luck, because their music definitely has a really, really cool niche. I really like the sound. I think it's very unique, but also at the same time, it's like classic punk. And then also their lyrics are all about current events and trending topics. It's very relevant. I wish Cheap Perfume definitely all the luck in the future. All right, and here we are. Welcome to Open Mic's Last Call. You made it this far in the podcast. I reward you. Thank you. It's impressive. I wonder how many people actually make it all the way to the end of the podcast. So if you are here listening to my voice, thank you. But this is going to be a tough segment to do, because this is just another mass shooting. And I mean, I hate to just talk about the mass shootings, because I think these mass attacks in general with bombs, you have the Boston Marathon bomb, and then also, or with cars being driven into, groups of people, like in France, in Nice, France, and then I think it happened in another place, in London, I believe. So I mean, these attacks are happening, worldwide. The gun violence is more happening here. The gun massacres are more happening here in America because we have such easy access to the guns. So what you see always is the liberals have, this knee-jerk reaction. We need to get rid of all guns and have tighter gun regulations, which, that's very relevant. And I think, we do need to have more gun regulations. But in other countries in Europe, these attacks are happening also. I mean, it's a little different motive. A lot of times they're, ISIS inspired, which, this recent attack in Las Vegas, 59 people have been killed and, 500 plus have been wounded. It was, they don't even know why this guy has done it, which is insane. There's no note, which that's the big thing. This whole Vegas mass shooting just doesn't make sense. There's 23 guns in his apartment on the 23rd floor, and then I think they found like 15 more guns back at his house. So I really want to know where this crazy lunatic, this 50, or I think he's 65-year-old old man, and he built sniper mounts to be able to snipe people out in his hotel room. He had cameras in the hallways to be able to watch for the police. So when the police came, he was able to kill himself. So I guess to be able to kill the most people up to the last point and then take his own life, so he wouldn't be captured. But it's just, this was so well thought out, and he didn't leave a suicide note. There's no manifesto. You always see some sort of manifesto with these people because they want, they want to be famous and they want their word to be out there. But there was nothing like that. So, I mean, I saw this list and it kind of blew me away. And this isn't like massacres or mass attacks, because then you'd have Boston Marathon and other things. But this is just since 2007 gun massacres. So you have Virginia Tech 2007, 32 killed. Fort Hood 2009, 13 killed. Aurora, Colorado 2012, 12 killed. Sandy Hook Elementary School 2012, 26 killed. The Navy Yard in 2013, I think that's what was at Fort Hood, 12 dead. And then Utica College in 2005, I think that was in New York, that was 9 killed. In Colorado Springs 2015, 3 killed. Chattanooga 2015, 5 killed. Charleston, South Carolina, that was at the church, 2015, 9 killed. San Bernardino 2015, 14 killed. Colorado Springs 2015, 3 killed. And Orlando, the Pulse nightclub shooting, which was the most deadliest up until just the other night, 49 killed. And now Las Vegas 2017, 59 killed. And I mean, 2015 had a lot of mass shootings, but it's been slowly increasing. And then of course you can go back to Columbine, which I think I was kind of really thinking about this. I think that is the main event that really kind of put the mass shooting idea onto the public stage, and really then you kind of had copycats and people who wanted to reenact or get more kills than the last person for whatever reason. A lot of times these people they're very unhappy, they want to commit suicide, but they want to be remembered, and that's the way they think is the best way to be remembered, which is just it's just horrible, you know. It's just, it really hit me watching some of the footage and hearing about it. And I mean, I talk about it all the time. If you do listen to the podcast regularly, you know this is one of my passions, is news, politics, and music. And I merge it all, and I love watching the news. I love keeping up with politics. I love getting all in the weeds and looking at the legislation and exactly how it's going to work and all the nuts and bolts. And I really like to analyze both sides and be critical of both sides and always pay attention. But this shooting really just hit me. You know, it's pretty emotional, and it hit me pretty hard because, you know, also I'm doing this show, so I've been going to a lot more music shows, and it was a country music show. But just like the other day, I wrote, you know, I tweeted out that, you know, it's amazing how music can unite people. And it really, you know, it's tough to think about that people are going to be scared or looking over their shoulder now if they're at a festival when there's hundreds or thousands of people outside and there's skyscrapers around them, because they're going to think, are there snipers, you know, peering down at you, or, you know. So it's really, really a difficult situation. And if we just go and get rid of guns and do, you know, more gun legislation, and if we go, which we do need, don't get me wrong, but if we just go and do that, these mass murders, these mass killings are still going to continue, whether it's with a crock pot or with a car or some sort of bomb device. These are still going to continue. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I have all the solutions or I know what it is, but it's definitely not the weapon or the tool that is the problem. It's an underlying systematic problem of our broken system, our broken society, and how we fix that, you know, that's up to everyone. And if we're going to fix that, but if we don't, we're going to keep seeing these mass murders, these mass killings, whether it's with a gun or bombs or whatever. And it's just difficult to report the news and to do this. And, you know, now it's been about 10 months I've been doing this, pretty much the podcasts every week nonstop. It's just, man. And then after this event and watching it and then writing up my show notes and everything, it's just I'm really burnt out, and this has really taken a hit on me. So I don't know what I know. I have a couple more interviews lined up. I have another show I get to go to coming up in LA, which I will tweet about this and put it on Facebook and everything. I hope if anyone is in LA, they can come out. I know Ronnie from 390, hopefully the whole band from 390 will come out, because some of my good friends, a band called No Refills, are coming out from Arizona, and they're going to be playing up at the Doll Hut up at in Anaheim, California, and that's one of 390's favorite venues. So I'm having them come over. We're going to have some beers, hang out, you know, get some good vibes going on, you know, have some fun debate, you know, political debating, because you know, some libertarian debating with Ronnie. So it's gonna be good times. So I have some cool shows lined up, but other than that, I'm kind of burnt out, and I'm gonna kind of scale it back. So we'll see. I'll keep everyone posted. I've been loving doing this podcast for the past, you know, 10 months, almost a year now, and I'm gonna keep going for a little bit. But it's just this massacre, man. It's difficult to deal with, especially when, you know, I'm taking in news constantly every day, and, you know, it's just so close to home, and it's so much death and destruction with the war, Syria, and everything that's going on. And then now here, so close to home. And then also we have North Korea, all the crazy saber rattling in that regard. It's just so much going on. It's just, I completely understand how the average person just tunes it out. They don't want to hear about this shit. It's just way too much. And like I said, I enjoy doing this, and this is what my passion is: watching news and eating information and watching legislation get passed. And I love watching elections. I love watching elections and campaigns up to elections. But even I am burnt out and just like, damn, exhausted. So I can only imagine the average person with a family who just, they're just like, man, I'm done. Trump is nuts. North Korea is nuts. And now we have all these people being killed. And we have Tom Petty who died. Rest in peace, Tom Petty. So much just shit. So I understand why people are tuning it out and why people don't want to pay attention. But I almost think right now, more than ever, is important for us to pay attention, and the most important time for us to stand up, change the system itself, because it's broken. And we have an opioid epidemic, and we have these mass killings going on. We have these wars, and we have the growing gap between the ultra rich and the working and poor. Our system is broken. Everything is broken, and it needs to be fixed. And I think running away and ignoring it is definitely the wrong thing to do, but I definitely think we need to keep our sanity. So let's listen to some more good music, and I'm going to bring some more good music and some more punk rock and all sorts of awesome music. And, I think we can do this. So thanks for checking out, Punk Rock and Politics, and listening all the way to the end of Open Mic's Last Call. And thanks for all the support everyone has been giving me, and I am looking forward to the next couple weeks. And thanks. Let's keep it positive, and let's just keep some positive vibes, and maybe we could turn this around. I think we can. So thanks again for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. We'll check you out next week. Peace out. Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all of our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right.